Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk9527. CryptoPunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Today we have Punk6745. He's a 3 Atty. He has a shaved head, earring, and eye mask. He's a professional animator punk that has done some iconic animation graphic design work for some of the biggest names in the industry, A24 Films and Google, just to name a few. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Adam Ape. Adam, how are you?
GM.
Good morning to you, sir.
Starting the day. Yeah. Excited to be here.
Nice. So you're dialing in from in the US, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, East Coast US.
Yeah, and I can tell by the accent there too. It's evening here in good old Hong Kong. So welcome to the show, man. And yeah, I've been pretty excited to get on and have a chat with you. I sort of see there's been a bit of activity on your sort of Twitter sort of feed. Obviously, the big one being your punk purchase, but also some of the projects you got going on. But perhaps you could just kick us off by just giving us an introduction, I guess, to yourself and your background and how you sort of found yourself into the NFT space.
Yeah, I've been, as you sort of mentioned, I've been working in the graphic design and motion graphics and animation industry for a while, about 12 to 13 years now as my primary profession. And just being involved in that has led to a lot of relationships with other artists and just knowing what's going on in the creative space, and became aware of crypto, I would say 2017, bought the top in 2018. That was my first experience buying BTC and ETH at the top of 2018, but was, wrote it down, never sold, and was always intrigued. I didn't know about NFTs back then, but between then and 2020, I don't remember exactly when I became aware of NFTs, but the first one was CryptoPunks. And the first time I started to pay attention was, I think I saw Jay-Z, whom I'm a very, very big fan of, buy his. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something to pay attention. Because before I just had dismissed it as okay, that's weird. It's a weird pixel art. $50,000 seems, I don't know, doesn't really interest me. Because I didn't really understand what it meant and what it stood for. But as I paid a little bit closer attention and started asking people who I know who are in the NFT space, I just started going down the rabbit hole. And then I think middle of last year, I decided to jump in fully in terms of collecting and creating. Yeah, so I've been fully in the space doing both for about a year now, a little over a year.
So mid 21 was when you sort of jumped in head first.
Yeah.
And prior to that, what were you sort of doing? What were you sort of freelancing in sort of digital design space, or were you sort of in blockchain already?
No, I all Web2 companies, as you mentioned, Google. I've done work for Nike, Snapchat. I bounce back and forth between freelance and full time. It would just depend on every 2 years I would kind of get excited to do something different and change jobs. So I would go back and forth between the full time world and the freelance world, and then usually settle in a full time gig for the benefits and so the safety that provided. But yeah, I hopped around a bunch over that 13 years, small studios, big companies, media companies, tech companies, Web2 tech companies, the whole range pretty much.
Cool. And you spoke about just aping it at the top in 2017, 2018. I think everybody sort of did that. But what did you make of the space back then, and how has it sort of changed now? What did you not know then and sort of know now?
I wasn't originally really involved in Twitter back then. The communication I had with other people was either IRO or on Reddit, and discussing trading and price go up, price go down on Reddit wasn't exactly that engaging. So I was just excited about it as a new technology, as a new investment platform. I really didn't know too much beyond that. But over time, I got to learn about like the ethos of blockchain and decentralization and all the things that like the reasons why it was created in the first place, maybe like it even more. And those are like just the small discoveries that I made over time. I'm just being curious about, what exactly this thing is. And, of course, after aping.
Yeah. So back then you only bought Bitcoin. Did you buy any other coins? Because I bought it Bitcoin to buy a whole bunch of other altcoins that went to zero.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Probably a good thing.
That was now that I look back, a lot of those Reddit threads were like, "Oh, this new shitcoin," and I sold a lot of my Bitcoin. I try to flip, to get into some of these early shitcoins, and they're all at zero. I can't even remember some of the names of them, but yeah, I just did some gambling on that down bad.
Yeah. And then, yeah, no, I'm the same too. And so I think we've got a similar sort of background there. Sort of went in, and then did you experiment or stay with sort of any of those coins up until last year when you made a resurgence back into NFTs, or was it basically just quiet then back in and then restarting in 17?
The only other one was Solana. So I can't remember. Someone told me about it as I was just sort of like generally aware of the space and keeping an eye on things, not really being fully hidden. I had seen this, obviously the narrative of the Ethereum killer had been around for a while. I don't know why this one intrigued me more. Maybe it was just like the backing that it had when I first heard about it. I just decided to pick some up. I think it was around like $20-$30 for the run up. And that was I think that was the only altcoin. It was like BTC, ETH, and Solana. And that's, holding Solana and being aware of that was also what sort of led me into exploring the Solana NFT space later on. But yeah, those are the three main coins leading into 2020, 2021.
Awesome. Yeah, that's something I want to dig into, but maybe we can hold off on that question in terms of your shifting a bit of a project away from Solana onto ETH as well. But let's circle back around to that. And then so then you sort of that's sort of your start into it. And then what was your first NFT? Do you remember? Do you recall what your first NFT you bought was?
Yeah, so the first NFT I tried to buy was a Let's Walk by DK, who happens to be an old acquaintance of mine from art school and from Google. We've crossed paths in the past.
Yeah, DK's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So he, I was aware of him and I saw him blowing up. And he's actually the reason why I got into the space. I DM'd him after seeing some of his success, and I was like, "Can you just explain to me like what this is? Why are you involved in it? How did you become so successful?" And he basically just like gave me the rundown and gave me that little extra push to jump in myself. But the first one I tried to buy was one of his Let's Walks. It sold out immediately. I wasn't able to pick it up. Funny enough, the first NFT I ever bought was a Solana NFT, Solana Monkey Business. I don't know. I was like, man, everything I want to buy is like either too expensive or I can't get it in time. And I had seen this Solana NFT space was new and it felt like I could get it on the ground floor. So I just decided to go for it and buy one of their first NFTs, which happened to be the Solana Monkey Business.
That was a good pickup, right? Because I think they pumped quite hard after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they still considered one of the blue chips of the chain. I know, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard people position them, they're the punks of Solana, sort of.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the artwork's actually pretty cool on the SMBs. But I missed that one. I ended up buying a whole bunch of Solarians, which didn't turn out so well for me. But like I'm a huge fan of DK as well. I picked up a couple of his, and he's got a really, really strong collector base, right? So I think Cosmo and Byron Kaimo's got some of his stuff as well. So no, huge person to have in your background there, man. So
he's great. Like he, besides onboarding me basically into convincing me to jump in as an artist, he was telling me like, certain collections that he was into, and yeah, it was just great. It's great to just like have somebody out, just DM occasionally, ask him questions, and he's always super supportive and helpful. It's just great to have an outlet like that in space.
Totally. And so when you came into the NFT space, then so you were between ETH and Solana, and then you bought Solana Monkey Business. I'm assuming because you already had some Solana in the bag.
Yeah.
Did you start then going down rabbit holes, I guess, in the Solana communities? And then, I mean, how did you sort of come through and get to your first project, which was the Voxel Monkeys, which is really, really cool artwork, by the way.
Thank you. So I was kind of riding both. Like, I think the first big, and this kind of gets to one of your questions about worst loss or regret in NFTs. I was riding both, and another artist I was following before I had invested or jumped in was Murat Pak, and he, funny enough, he came from the motion design world. Like, he was someone I had seen post videos on Vimeo like 10 years ago. I was always a fan of his work. So, at the time, everyone's like, "Oh my God, this next project's gonna be crazy." So
Was Pac big before NFTs? Like you sort of said 10 years ago. So he was actually a big name in the motion design.
oh yeah,
10 years ago. Oh wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you look him up on Vimeo, Vimeo is like a artist driven YouTube. He was posting 3D work and had been well known as a 3D artist for a long time in that space. Not in like the crypto NFT space, but in the sort of motion graphics, 3D animation space. So I was following him, and I had seen him release a bunch of projects on Nifty Gateway. I think it's cubes, like it was the fungible or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I thought the aesthetic was great, and the execution and the taste level. So, and I was eager to get into ETH NFTs. So when his Lost Poets came out, I was like, okay, I'm going hard in this. This guy is like, he's proven in the motion space. He's like the highest selling artist, besides Beeple, I think. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go. All these influencers are talking about it. It just seems like it makes sense. And, here we are. Basically zero. I'm still holding them. I believe in him as a creator. I think he could have handled things a little differently with some of the drops, but I'm going to hold and see what happens. But that's probably one of my biggest losses and or regrets, is just going so hard into that.
No, I'm with you, man. I think I aped a bag of Mass. I don't know if you remember that project.
Yeah, me too.
I think he cleaned up about 95 million in like a single weekend, right? It's kind of crazy. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully he does make a bit of a resurgence. Okay, so then you got through Pack, and then how did you get to Voxel Monkeys?
Yeah, so as I said, I was sort of riding both the waves of both change, trying to juggle both sides. And me just being an animator and a designer and holding an SMB, I just thought it'd be fun to animate my monkey, and I posted that. So I created 2 Twitters too, which is how I ended up with this animate, because I did have another Docs and Ethereum Twitter, which didn't really go anywhere. And the animate one blew up, I think mostly because of what happened on Solana. But I animated my monkey, I posted to Twitter, and it just blew it. Like, people were like, "Oh my God, what is this? Do it for mine." And I realized really quickly that, like, okay, there's a gap in the market for good art on Solana, right? Like SMB, it's great pixel art, but when it was released, there really wasn't too many other projects that had good aesthetics. It was like the landscape was very low effort and scammy. I think people were just hungry for good quality work. So I started animating people's monkeys for, commissions. And it got to the point where I couldn't take in all the requests that I was getting. And I just thought, okay, well, let me try an experiment. If I tried to turn this into a one-of-one project, right? I used the monkey silhouette, but I created a 3D aesthetic that made it and differentiated it. I create all the characters' traits just to have it be able to stand on its own, and they were animated. Could this have enough legs to sort of take off? That was like the premise for this experiment that became Voxel Monkeys. In the beginning, I had no plans, had no idea where it would go. I just sort of made a few and put them up for auction, with the plan of doing 100, which was arbitrarily sort of decided on. And man, from the first auction, it kind of just blew up in a way that I never could have expected. So that was how the Voxel Monkey project got started, just organically from me being involved in SMBs and animating people's monkeys, identifying the gap in the market that was there at the time.
Awesome. And so basically these were commissioned pieces? one-of-one commission pieces?
So no, the Voxel Monkey collection weren't commission pieces, but that's how I got the idea was
Got it.
Yeah, it was commissioning animations for people's SMBs, and then coming up with the idea like, okay, well, what if I made my own that weren't commissioned, that weren't based on any traits, that were completely unique, and created a one-of-one collection that was auction. So I sort of pivoted from the commissions into something that could stand on its own. That makes sense.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the aesthetic's just absolutely cool. The animation's absolutely cool too. I mean, I'm just looking at the Jordan one now. I'm a big Jordan fan too, right? So I think you just hit the sweet spot there for me. Sold for 266 sold. That's huge. And then I see the King below, number 75, sold for 863 sold. That's some pretty big sales, dude.
Yeah, it was. I think the first few auctions, I think were like 10, 15 sold, and then I think we peaked during the bull when Solana was like 100, 200. I sold to Steph Curry for like 45 grand, which was boggling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like honestly, it was incredible. I never could have expected this response. And what was great about it was like, I could inject these cultural icons. What's great about one-of-one art is, you can do a lot more custom things. Where generative, it's much more about building a logical system and what works in a random context. Where one-of-one, especially in like a themed set like Voxel Monkeys, is you can combine, known traits. You can just have references to cultural figures, sports figures, iconic people in a really fun way. And I think that it just resonated with people, which has been awesome.
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head. Maybe it's from like, I don't know, I'm assuming we're from the same, almost like the same vintage. I mean, you've got Biggie, got Vincent Vega from what was that movie? Tarantino movie, Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
You got Kobe as well with a really cool sort of viper coming out of it, the Mamba, I think.
Yeah, Mamba, yeah.
And the Predator. I'll put this in the show notes because I think everybody needs to have a look at this too. It's really, really cool. Darth Vader. So I think you've hit the cultural element that really resonates with, I guess, our generation. I sort of feel like almost the D-Gen sort of crew that were sort of flipping and trading NFTs during that period as well last year.
Yeah.
And the community that you sort of vibed with, was this mostly primarily the SMB community that were your sort of buyers here?
I think that's how it started. Because to be honest with you, in the beginning, people were like, "Oh, you're just like, this is just a derivative of monkeys." And I think it just started with SMB people. But as time went on, what was great was like when I started this project, there were a lot of other monkey projects, and it was sort of just dismissed as like, oh, it's just another derivative monkey project. But because the auction-based, biweekly auctions or whatever it ended up being was spread out over this year, people were able to see over time, like, okay, wow, this is actually something more than what I initially thought it was. There's some value here. I was also trying to provide value for my holders with getting them access to other projects. So after it grew beyond SMB holders, it became honestly the whole Solana ecosystem. And even a few ETH people, some friends, I try to convince them to come in. Showing my project was just pretty cool. But yeah, I think like it grew beyond that, and that was my goal, was to see could this have legs in a way that wasn't attached or associated with this, and I think it has.
Awesome. And then so from that project, I think you've got another project coming up called Iron Paw. What did you sort of have anything in between, or was Iron Paw your sort of next one, the 4x4?
Yeah, that was 4x4 was an addition I did. It's funny because there's like a sort of connective tissue between all of these. So as I was wrapping up the Voxel ones, I decided to trim from 100 down to 75 for a few reasons, just time commitment and market conditions, things like that. But as I was wrapping up the final few, I had it in my head like, okay, I've done the one-on-one auction things. I've seen boutique collections like Invisible Friend and some other ones that were really well done and interested in me. And I was just curious, like, okay, well, what if I took on the sort of generative randomized animation design problem. It seems kind of fun. So I started playing with that in the background. And the 4x4 driver and vehicle exploration was like one of the initial tests that I did for Iron Paw. Before I knew what it would be, I kind of liked the idea of a vehicle and a driver having two components to whatever it would be. And that was just sort of like an early exploration, obviously pixel art. And I thought like, okay, I had that in the back pocket. I didn't ultimately settle on the sort of car or truck and pixel art direction. I ended up doing obviously mechs and vector art. But I thought it could be cool in the interim between ending Voxel Monkeys and minting Iron Paw. If I release this as an edition, and it gives allow list access to holding and gives allow list access to Iron Paw. Felt like a nice tie-in and bridge between the two projects. And that, that has I think it's the second most successful edition ever dropped on Solana, which has been amazing.
The 4x4 was?
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Yeah, nice. And then, so maybe you can just help us talk through a little bit more around the Iron Paw project. This one you're doing on Solana, is that right?
Yeah, I think like over the last year or so, collecting on both chains and losing a lot of money, gambling on projects on both sides. I think like a lot of other people, there was a flight to quality. And, this is one of the reasons why I bought a Punk and have plans to buy a Fidenza and some of the historic, iconic blue chip pieces was, I want to shift the money. Well, obviously, like I still love to support up-and-coming artists and trying to do that when I can. But instead of gambling, being a really bad trader, because I am a bad trader, I decided, I'm going to put money towards NFTs that I think have historical value. Number one, are quality, but also potentially can give me access to circles of people that I want to be involved in. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to shift to Ethereum was one, because just all the historic work that's present there, and wanting my work to be shoulder to shoulder with that work. And I felt like, not that I had reached a ceiling on Solana, but it felt like the safer thing to do. It was like, okay, I've established myself on Solana. It's been proven, but I do think having some connections that I have on Ethereum and having quality work that I have, why not take the chance and try to launch on Ethereum and go cross-chain as a cross-chain artist? And that was just sort of like the challenge and the risk and the ambition for wanting to launch on Ethereum rather than.
No, amazing. I completely sort of understand that as well. I think, not to be so much of an Ethereum maxi as well, but I do feel like the communities are relatively different, even though there is, some crossover. But yeah, I sort of do feel like there is a sort of another untapped market for you here on Ethereum as well. So it'd be a good experiment and to move away from, I guess, the maximalism that sort of exists on both chains as well, right? So no, great to sort of see you on Ethereum, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I think like, beyond the reasons I just stated, there, it felt like, this is at least just my assumption, people appreciate art more on Ethereum than Solana. Even now, I get DMs from Solana people saying, hey, is Iron Paw just going to be art? Like, what's the utility going to be? Because that's just been the meta. Like, there haven't been any real, truly successful generative based art PFP projects or animation projects in general on Solana. So that's the assumption, which is kind of annoying, because I want this to be, it's artist driven, it's art first, and sort of whatever roadmap or utility would be icing on the cake and come secondary. And I haven't had anyone on the Ethereum side ask me, what's the utility going to be for?
Okay, got it. Yep.
Where on Solana, that's pretty much the only question I've been getting. Besides, what's the utility and why are you doing ETH?
It gets a little bit tiring. Yeah. No, I could sort of see that as well. I sort of had a look at one of your tweets as well, and it felt like some of the comments were from the Solana community was a bit scathing of you sort of moving off Solana onto ETH, right?
Yeah, and I was pretty surprised by that, to be honest with you. I didn't realize how many chain maxis there really were, because it felt like, everyone, at least my assumption was everyone who was on Solana had come from Ethereum. I guess that's not the case anymore. At least maybe it was a year ago. But I had to always assume that people were dabbling in both like I was. I guess just that was a false assumption. And then, honestly, it really kicked off when I bought the Punk. There was some FUD like, oh, you just bought this with the 4x4 proceeds. Like you dumped on the whole, everyone bought it, which I don't understand how that works. Like, it's an edition, my money. I don't know why I'm not allowed to buy things with my own money.
Yeah.
But there were some people there, and there still are some forward looking people like, okay, he's trying to get into the circles on Ethereum. Buying a Punk would just help with some of those things. Like, look, here I am on the PunkCast podcast, right? Like, it wasn't like a malicious, like, I'm going to just sell this 4x4 edition and then immediately buy an ETH NFT because fuck Solana. Like, that was not, I don't know how it was interpreted that way, but that was sort of how this chatter came about. And then, like, when people finally started to see, okay, oh wow, IronPro is actually going to be on ETH. I think some people assumed it might still be on Solana. Is when I started some backlash, and I just felt like I needed to publicly say, like,
no, I feel you, man. I was reading that too, and I can sort of imagine how challenging that must be to sort of get through. But just to go back along, I guess the key lines of thought that you were thinking through around, people on ETH genuinely appreciate art, and look, some of them still continue to push for utility, etc.
Yeah.
But I think the other element as well is not to become a bit of an ETH maxi. I mean, I do have some Solana and some Solana NFTs, but I think when Luna collapsed, the ability for a blockchain to sort of collapse, if you have an NFT on a chain that you're not really comfortable about with having, security and being up all the time, it matters, right? Especially if you want to have anything of value stored on that chain. And so, and Solana's got some scaling issues. I'm sure ETH had some scaling issues early on in the piece too. But if you want to have something valuable, I mean, if you had a Fidenza, you want access to that 24/7. I mean, if a blockchain goes down, it gets a little bit scary, right? So
100%.
Yeah. So no, I'm with you on that. Yeah. So I think the punks and all the ETH people would be welcome you with open arms as well, especially with your links to DK, because DK has just done such a fantastic job on his projects too. So yeah, we're eagerly sort of waiting for IronPro to sort of launch. Have you sort of got a launch date for it, or?
I'm shooting for Q1. I don't have a date. Q1 of next year. There are some things in the works that are on the Ethereum side that I think will be very bullish. I don't want to announce anything yet because the deals haven't been signed yet, but there's going to be some stuff coming soon that I think will help me get eyes to other collectors on Ethereum that appreciate similar work, and help me manage the community side and the contract side. Because right now it's like, being from Solana, I don't have any contacts or actions on like ETH developers or community managers. So there's some moves that are being made to help aid me with that, and I think that's going to help me map out the mint date and all things like that.
Adam, I think that sounds like alpha already, mate. So when I drop this out, I think some of the punks might sort of jump in. But I think some of the punks are pretty helpful with some of that stuff too. So you should definitely jump on the Telegram and the Discord and ask around, because there are really some real gigabrains in there. And we can have a chat offline as well if you like. And then so when did you actually buy your CryptoPunk? It's a real cool punk, by the way. I love the eye mask. Makes you look like a real criminal.
Yeah. Maybe that's why people were like, he's rugged by buying the Punk. And the Punk. So he's definitely, I think I bought it, I think it was like 3 weeks ago now. It was one of the most exciting moments I don't know about my entire life, but it was my first thing of my Web3 life.
So walk us through that. Like, what was how long have you sort of been looking for punks for, and how were you sort of thinking about traits along the whole selection process?
So I had been eyeing them for, I think since I started collecting NFTs, like, once I really understood what the value was, because I think, like I said, I had seen them at some point when they, were like 20 to 50 grand, and I just had completely brushed them off, and I wish I didn't. But once I understood what they represented and what they meant in terms of NFT history and blockchain history, it was like, okay, I need one. I'm going to try to find an opportunity to buy one, and this bear market was the perfect chance to do so. And then as far as traits, to be honest with you, I was looking for one, and I wanted one that looked like me, kind of.
A
I don't
criminal.
know why.
When you found out about its value, I think you spoke about historical and provenance and elements of Jay-Z. I mean, what do CryptoPunks represent to you, if you can go sort of the next layer down?
They just represent a belief. To me, this is why I bought it. It's like a belief in NFTs as an important piece of culture. And if I'm here selling NFTs, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and saying, okay, I'm invested. I have skin in the game. I'm going to buy one of the first NFTs to really just change the way we look at generative collections and identity and PFPs. It just made sense to me. Like if I'm really here as a true believer, why wouldn't I want to own, the collection, right? The NFT to me are the CryptoPunks. So that was my reasoning there.
Absolutely. Awesome. And you spoke about, I think what's interesting is you spoke about building your identity, and you selected, I guess, the eye mask because you wanted to build a bit of identity around that. You elaborate on that a little bit further?
Yeah, I mean, this I go back and forth on this because I think it's tricky to build your identity around a PFP that you may eventually want to sell. And I don't know if I want to sell this one or not. I'm like, all right, should I just get another one so I can sell that one later, but keep this one? But I think there is value to like brand recognition for your PFP. And I think punks are some of the most recognizable personalities and brands on Twitter. So I felt like if I could do something similar and try to build an audience around the punk, maybe it might be worth pursuing. So that's my thinking there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I ask because I guess I'm interested as well, right? I think I'm thinking about the same way with my punk, but also looking back at some of the well-known punks and how they sort of almost built like a bit of a cult sort of following and known for those particular traits. And so if they change their profile picture, I mean, you sort of get lost. Who is this talking to me? Like, I think, G Money, he's like, the knitted cap ape, who Beanie is, who
Yeah.
you mentioned Farouk and all these guys in it. It's just been, very iconic. And one thing I sort of wonder is that, is there, once you sort of build up this sort of brand equity, does it add and accrue more value to the actual punk when you later sell it? I think when I first started, I think there was I can't remember what Twitter account, but they were building up a lot of derivative punk NFTs. So they were getting commissioned work from one-of-ones from, relatively well-known artists. I think it might have been I think OSF or something. I can't remember. And then I think he sold off his punk with all the derivative work that associated with it, and also his Twitter account that was Punk XXX,
Oh, wow.
which already had a huge following as well, right? And so, so that's sort of an interesting sort of play, right? Because I think you can, you've got the capability, you're in the driver's seat to actually build up some brand equity behind your punk, let alone, waiting for somebody else to come and do it for you. So that's an interesting play. Cool. And then, so what do you sort of collect? I've got your wallet open right now. I mean, in between, so I sort of see you've got a mutant ape, some other deeds. You got some art blocks in here as well, Meridian and Chroma Squiggles. Like, do you have a preference for anything that you sort of collect?
I'm trying to lean back into the art blocks and generative art stuff. Like as I mentioned, I would love to get my hands on Fidenza. And having been through this last cycle and have spent money and lost money on things that I didn't actually like, it was just purely like, oh, can I flip this? It feels a lot more comfortable and I can sleep better at night when I buy something that I actually like, like that I visually identify with, right? Like there's nothing worse than buying something that you're speculating on that you don't even like, and then it goes down and you're just sitting there mocking you in your wallet.
I've had to hide a few things from my wallet too, so don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you spoke about the Fidenza. So what is it about, I guess, the Fidenza that you really appreciate?
I actually have dabbled in generative art, not on chain. And it's the aesthetics of it were things that I actually had played with previously, and I just love like the variation of stroke size and composition and density and color and movement. The movement pieces, as an animator, I think the cadenzas have just inherent. You just look at one, and there's just inherent movement at every inch. There's just pushes and pulls and contrast. And it's just, I think it's visually, it's amazing. And if I can own that and own a piece of like, one of the first iconic generative arts pieces on chain, it's just like a win-win. So that's the reasoning there.
No, I'm with you on that too. It's an absolutely stunning collection as well. I think it's in everybody's list to get a Fidenza in the bag. And then, so when you sort of take a step back from NFTs over the last sort of 12, 18 months that you've sort of been in, do you have a moment where you feel like this is a life-changing moment, or you've had a really good win in the space? I think you've spoken about, Monkey Voxel selling for, so for thousands of dollars. But
yeah,
is there any sort of particular moment that comes to mind?
I mean, I think once my work was selling for, tens of thousands of dollars, it was like, okay, wow, there's something here. And I still work my Web2 full-time job, but I'm hoping to eventually ride the bear market out. It's great to have some health benefits and the income during the bear market. But I think it showed me that, okay, wow, there's an opportunity here to potentially do this full time, be an artist full time. And that was one of the first moments that I realized, like, wow, someone believes in me enough to buy my work for $40,000. Like that, I just couldn't. It's still like crazy to me, they're like, someone out there believes in me that much, and that just really like changed my. It just lit a fire under my ass. Like, wow, this is like, I can do this. Like this is something that's possible, and it just motivated me. So that was one of the bigger ones. Yeah, I think that, and like seeing, beyond the monetary financial aspects, just like seeing people identify with the work and the connections and I went to NFT NYC and met people IRL, and like have had real friendships be formed from being in the space, and that's been amazing. Yeah, so I think those two things made me like want to be here full time.
Awesome. Well, hopefully it's not too far away from you. And I guess do you have sort of a big lesson or an insight on NFTs for newcomers in the space that you sort of learned?
I mean, this is one I still struggle with, is just having patience. Like, this is what makes me a bad trader. If I have a bunch of money, if I have a bunch of ETH, I want to spend it immediately, or if I'm seeing a pump that I'm not a part of, like, for example, I sold my Rango boxes at 1 ETH and now they're...
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah.
Having patience, and, I think Dirty Robot and Ranga is amazing art. I don't know why I sold it. I think that was when I was trying to save it for my punk, so maybe I was in profit at the time. So I think like controlling your emotions when you see a pump that you're not a part of, or being frustrated when something you buy isn't doing anything. I think you just gotta like just take a step back and like, one, have patience, and two, like remember why did you buy this thing in the first place? The reasons sound, or was it because XYZ person told you? I think like it's easy to get caught up in the echo chamber. So my advice to newcomers, and I wish I could tell my past self, is like, take a moment, think about why you're about to do this action, whether it's buy or sell, and make sure it like aligns with some core value or beliefs, because I think that'll help. That just helps in your conviction term,
Awesome. No, I think that's very good advice. And then when you think about sort of a punk identity in the space on Twitter, I guess who's your favorite that you sort of tune into for advice? Do you have any that comes to mind?
4156, is he? I mean,
yeah, he's huge.
Yeah. He bought it back, right?
4156, was he the one that sold that to Nouns? I think he sold out and became sort of a Nounted, right?
Yeah.
So he
Still-
but he still calls himself Punk 4156, right? So yeah, I'm not sure if he bought it back, but okay. Yep, no, he's cool.
He was one of the first, and I think like I still every time I go to his feed, it's just like a masterclass on like the core ethos and like thinking of like why any of this exists in the first place. And it's a good reminder of like, okay, there's like other things at play and other reasons why this is valuable besides number go up, Besides him, man, there's so many. 6529. I think there's like, what I love is like I said, the true believers and the blockchain and crypto philosophers, for lack of a better term, like getting that like the insight to the bigger picture and the why that isn't always connected to the financial aspects, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
They I've learned a lot from those guys too. 6529 in particular. And then if you had one word to describe punk culture, what would it be?
I don't know if it's one word, but I think like what I've said previously, like true believer or crypto philosophers.
Yeah. And if you could pass a message on to your next owner of your punk, what would you like to say to them?
Taking care of them. No, I still go back and forth if I ever want to sell it. But if I did ever sell it, I would hope that the person, especially if it's like the whole package, like the identity and the Twitter account, all the derivatives, it's like, I would want to make sure that person's, stewards that identity and punk in a proper way, continues the legacy.
Amazing. And then, so I think that's basically sort of wrapping up our show, but Adam, it was super fun. I guess, how can sort of people find you if they want to sort of connect with you, and what's the sort of best way to do that?
Twitter, even though my DMs are closed. The Telegram, I'm in the Punk Telegram. My other project accounts on Twitter. Yeah, I think it's like either hit me up on Twitter or Telegram or Discord. Should I give my handles or?
Yeah, sure. I'll put it in the show notes anyway, right? So Adam _ape_, and I'll put links to your upcoming projects. And I guess any sort of final closing comments on your side? Anything that you want people to know? And
just that I'm just really excited to be in this space, to be a punk now. Is like, it just, I don't know, it means a lot to me, and I'm really excited. Even in the last 2-3 weeks that I've been one, it's been an incredible journey. I can't wait to like go to some IRL events and really dive deeper into the community. And to all my collectors or potential collectors, like I'm not going anywhere. Like, yes, I'm going to release work on both chains, on any chain. I'm not a one chain maxi. If there's some new chain that comes out in 3 years, that's an ETH and a Solana killer, I'll release work on that. I just like want to be here as a creator long term as my next sort of like chapter in my artistic career. So not going anywhere.
No, absolutely amazing. I had a lot of fun speaking with you today, Adam, and thank you for your time. I think the CryptoPunk community is really lucky to have you as part of our community, and definitely sort of reach out if you sort of need a hand with anything as well. But thank you again for joining PunkCast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. So thanks for listening, guys, and that's it for PunkCast. Till we speak again. Bye now.